Yep, I hear you. Oh, let's wait for them. Can you hear them, guys? They can hear me? Hey guys, welcome to our stream. Today I'm gonna say everything Clint is telling me via Discord. Oh no, they can't hear you. No. Yeah. He says he has to put the new audio input into OBS. I'm a muffet today, yeah.
Check.
He says check. Did you hear
Okay, there we go. They should be able to hear me now. They're picking up the background sound of my AC, so let me run a quick filter on that. That'll get rid of some of it, and
Right.
hopefully that'll work. Yeah, the mic was working. I was chatting with Anna before we started the stream, and then like as soon as I started the stream, the mic completely went out.
It
So
was like, I'm not ready for this. But it would have been an interesting stream as well. Like, you're telling me everything, and I just try to summarize and say, yeah, he says it's good. He says you can leave it like it is. Next.
okay.
No. Okay. Good to have you, Clint.
Yeah, I turned the gain up, so hopefully that works better. But
Let's pretend this never happened. Cut the video later and just do the opening now.
So, if you're new here, welcome. I'm Clint. Thank you for joining us for the weekly art live stream. This is an art challenge live stream that normally doesn't have all this tech stuff at the beginning, but my mic just failed, so we're trying to cover that. Anna is with us. Great to have you, Anna.
Hi, everyone.
Yeah, covering for me a little bit. Let me turn mine up some. Let's check that and we'll see. Maybe we need to turn hers down. I think I have hers turned up more in OBS, and that's what is patching through. So we'll run with that for a little bit and see how it is.
Yeah. Just let us know whether our voices are around the same volume, so you don't have to, like, I don't know, put your headphones down when I'm talking and put them on.
Squint with your ears to listen, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so a couple announcements to run through. Then going to be taking a look at the finals for Group 1 on the Elements, the Artifacts and Elementals Art Challenge. We have 7 images to look at this time, so it won't run quite as long as some of my others. If you haven't noticed, the newest video, How Your Brain is Sabotaging Your Art, is out. It's about 14 and a half minutes long and goes into the way that our brain functions that actually sabotages our ability to paint things and draw things accurately. Because it keeps using what it thinks something looks like and overrides what it actually looks like. This is very much the case in the face topic, which we are looking at in the image. And so if you haven't watched that, make sure you go out there and watch it. If you would, please share it. Share it on your Facebook page or in a different art group or that sort of thing. It really, really makes a big difference on the amount of traction that a video gets. I'm currently working through the Patreon reward, which is the first 3 lessons of the materials course. And I've actually, I need to talk to you afterwards about that. There's a couple of things that I need you to do on that one, Anna. But
yeah, I'm all here for you.
Yeah, I had forgotten until I opened it back up that I didn't have like the cheat sheet made, and I didn't make the new homework pages. So when I went back and I divided up the lesson into 2 lessons, I didn't make the new homework page. So I had to go do that, and now I need somebody to run through the homework pages. So yeah, if you have time, we're going to talk about that.
Yep. No
Next
problem.
up is, of course, we have a new challenge because this is the final of Group 1. That means that we will be kicking off a new challenge tomorrow. And we'll do a run through right here and let you know. Anna doesn't really know. I gave her kind of a rundown the other day.
Yeah,
But this
I was
one,
also late here. I'm sorry.
this one is books and binding. It is continuing a MTG theme. These would be spell
Mm.
cards. So you can choose one of two MTG challenge topics, either Carnivorous Library or Astral Binding. For the Carnivorous Library, set it in some sort of study room. Depict a scene of a person or persons being attacked by the books of the library. They have been enchanted to attack anyone but the authorized to enter. The person should be trying to protect themselves or flee from the attack. The book should be flying around them and some latched onto them in a biting action. The person should be human and wearing cloth and leathers. The other option is astral binding. Depict a large minotaur caught in a spell of astral binding. Astral is like magic, semi-real sort of thing. Astral chain should be springing from the ground to bind the minotaur in place, wrapping over his shoulders and maybe snaking around some of his limbs. The chain should be translucent with a glow and be either green or blue or some variation of that. Try to capture the minotaur straining against the chain's restriction. Location is a non-specific rocky terrain. And of course, guys, if you're going to be doing one of these and you are concerned about a change and whether it would be allowable within the framework of that particular image, shoot me a message. You can send me an email, you can send me a message on Discord, you can send me a message on Facebook. Any of those are fine. But what do you think about those options, Anna? Which one would you go with?
Yeah, they're both very tempting. So I want to ask a question right
Mm-hmm.
away. So about the mood, do you have anything specific in mind? For example, the book one you could pull off as being very creepy and dark. You could pull it off as being more a little bit like a funny D&D scene.
That's a good
Um,
question.
so
Yeah, the Carnivorous Library is not really like a horror scene. It's not necessarily dark like that. There should be enough light that you can see. It's a little, I would say, it's not lighthearted, but it's not dark, right? It could be on the fun, a little more on the fun side. Where Astral Binding, this is more like a battle scene, you know.
yeah.
And so it should just have a lot of tension, a lot of action, maybe dirt being thrown up by the chains shooting out of the ground. You've got the strain of the muscles on the Minotaur as he's trying to pull, or she, I suppose, trying to pull against it. And so yeah, that's good. What else comes to mind? Any other clarifications we should chat about?
First, just because it's in chat, could you put my voice a little bit lower? Because the people seem like having trouble. Because my voice is so loud and yours is so
Why you
low
can't
in
whisper?
volume. I could, but I don't think my mic will pick it up. The first thing I thought is the cool, very different ways. So a couple of books, many objects within the same frame means many objects that are similar in size and have a similar shape in with a specific perspective on them. So people who just did the perspective book we are doing in the book art club could see this as a good challenge for them to see whether they can do it now to make them all realistically put in that scene. It's a really cool thing to do. And also to make these books characters is a really good thing, to make them not look stiff, but really attacking and moving and all of that. So this is the cool thing about the first one. And the second one is, to my personal, is this astral aspect a very challenging thing. So to have something that looks really strong and hard to get out, but being translucent and glowing.
Hmm.
So yeah, to get this Minotaur also in a pose that is like really struggling with that,
Yeah.
and working a lot with the mimic also. And so this is the very challenging part there. So whatever you want to train, you can pick either of these
Hmm.
then. So I would need some more thought on which one to pick, to be
I
honest.
actually thought I do have some reference images, so let's flip over there and take a look at those. I know
Yeah.
it'll take a second for you to see them in your stream. But we've got 4 reference images for each of these. I just went out to some images I had saved on my computer and pulled them up. This is a really good example of just sort of a library study sort of scene, character in there. But if you can imagine that these books are almost swirling around the guy and trying to come at him, and he's maybe got his hand up trying to, protect his face, and maybe he's pushing another book off or that sort of thing. And you can have them in just a defensive, or you can have him just like, a little more comical, where he's like, and he's trying to run out the door, and the books are coming in behind him. This one's got a lot of that action. I think would be really great to pay attention to. You've got them moving around, and this is also showing the books that the books are in different varieties of being opened. And we also could have things like scrolls, and we could have things like individual papers. Now this has like a bunch of bottles and stuff being blown up. I don't know the context here, but we don't need that. It's not like the whole place is going to ruins. It's just the books have been animated. This is kind of cool. This is a magic piece I hadn't seen, but this is like animated library, I think is what it was called, or something like that. I don't necessarily need I don't really want to see the books taking on the form of a character. They are working independently, not collectively. But this does have a lot of the same feel of people kind of spazzing out and the books are flying around. And hey, some magic glows. I don't have anything against that. Maybe there's some like glow coming out from inside of the books or off their covers or something. And this was just a cool scene. If you just wanted a kind of a funny shaped room in the background with just a bunch of books on the shelves and stuff. So lots of action and motion, character on the defense, pages flying around. Over here we see some minotaurs, and I really like the cropping on this one is very close to what I would be looking for on this scene. So we're looking for a full body, full figure, and I would count this as full figure. If you had something like in the foreground a little bit kind of obscuring his feet, that would be okay. But generally speaking, we're looking for a full figure. And we do have some variants here between, you could go with like an ox face, or you can go, they also used rams as the minotaurs in the Amonkhet set. His chain, he does have this magic chain. It could be something similar to that, except for it's not red. Because he's trying to make it look hot, very heated. And this is, but the way that it sort of glows, that has a very similar effect of what we're looking for. We want a magic set of chains coming up. So taking a look at those, anything come to mind from that or any comments?
Yeah, so I like, for example, on the bottom left, the library one, which is a huge challenge because you have a lot of very stiff objects, but the artist made, for example, the shelves being more bound. Yeah, they're like rounded, and this gives a very specific dynamic. And I think this will be also a challenge with a lot of very stiff objects to get the dynamic into the painting. What do you think will be challenging to the people for these two? What do you think?
Okay, well, I think the first thing that we have to make sure does not become an issue is where is the creativity, and that's something that inherently is problematic if you don't take the time to think about it. So where is the creativity? And that's something I'm always asking myself when I start a new project. What are the things that are fixed and what are the things that I can change? In this case, let's talk about the Minotaur. Uh, it would be too creative to say, well, this scene is about somebody being bound. So what I'm thinking is it would be cool if I had a knight on a horse and there was like this giant snake that wraps around and binds him. I'm not saying that's not a cool idea. That's not what's being asked, right? And we're running this as a Magic the Gathering challenge so that the outlines are very similar to what you might get from Magic, and it is expected that you're going to fulfill that pretty much as, stated. But you have to look for the things that aren't stated. For instance, it doesn't tell you the gender of any of the characters, so you could change that. It doesn't really say what the characters are wearing. Are they in armor? Well, we know that one character, the human character in the library, is not. But the Minotaur, he could be armored, he could be unarmored. Is he, what kind of character is he? It doesn't set the time of day it is. It doesn't set the camera angle. It doesn't set the color scheme. So these are all things that you can have fun with. The next thing is perhaps camera angle, where the right camera angle could really go to make these scenes feel a lot more action-packed, or it can make it feel very dull. Now this one's a little different, right? This is a little different than just doing a character image, because it's not about the character, it's about the action taking place involving the character. So it has to be really, really clear what the scene is about, not just who the character is. So we don't want to go too tight. Otherwise, when I mean too tight, if we just crop in, really tight, and we just see like a book here and a book here and a book here, that scene becomes just about that character and not about the action taking place overall. Likewise, if we crop too tight into the Minotaur, it just becomes about the Minotaur and not really about the action. So those are some initial things I think offhand. Then the body language, the expressive face and body of actually both of the characters and the images is something that's going to do a lot to convey that energy. Would you put out any thoughts or tips that you think people might want to keep in mind?
Yeah, so I really just can suggest to everyone to really not skipping the first stages of the painting process, like getting very different sketches from different angles with different poses before like running really ahead in detail with one specific one, the first one you maybe made up. So yeah, just take your time and really figure things out first. See how it looks when you're more zoomed in, when you're more zoomed out. Do you really make use of all the space in your canvas? Is it really all helping the picture, or is it empty and not telling us everything? Can we leave it out? Yeah, or like that. So if you're really insecure about that, Clint has great course on that on his page about the painting process, and I just can recommend really going through that one step by step and not rushing things.
Yeah, just taking it step by step. It's a huge thing to do. I do it myself. Anna does it. We know that it's best to just handle the right thing at the right time, and it reduces the amount of changes that you ultimately have to do. Okay, now we also want to have a quick word that if you want to have a go at this, you're welcome to do so for free, but you won't receive feedback, right? So this will be put out onto the Discord group, and you can go out there and download this information. And if you don't have the money or the time to join the challenge, then you need, you just download it and have a go and, put your progress out in the group, get some feedback. But if you do want to get feedback from us in 2 weeks for the live stream, and then 2 weeks after that, then tomorrow, you know what? I think I might put it back out on the Gumroad store. It's a little easier to manage. Yeah, I might put it on the Gumroad store. I'll put the link to where the tickets are when I post them tomorrow. But keep an eye out for that, and then I will. And there'll be 12 tickets available for Group One. Then next week there will be 12 tickets available for Group Two. Yeah. All right. I think that's it. Of course, if you want to get in on the Paintover streams, those are every Wednesday at the same time as this stream, 2 p.m. CST. And you can schedule an hour consult with me over at art-mentor.com. And yeah, good stuff. All right, so now it's time to take a look at some of the images. All right. Finals Group 1. We're going to just start with Alexi, going alphabetically here. So they've had 4 weeks to develop their image and send it in, and this is what we have now. I'm going to move around some of these guys. I don't really like them floating up there on top of my board. All right, some comments down here. Let's read that first. I realize I have no clear understanding of when to finalize one phase and work and shift to another. Someone on YouTube once suggested the moment you start damaging your piece is when you call it a day. Yeah, if you can put it off for that day, sure. For me, it's right after sketching. Well, nothing makes it no piece makes it all the way through the process without being developed, and neither should it. The artist should have a certain amount of flexibility that he can change and adapt to what is working and what is not working. And so he's always a little fluid. So you can actually make it more difficult by just trying to be absolutely strict to your image. While working, I know what I want. I see the awfulness of where I'm at, but no idea of how to get from A to B. Usually that's when people have a emotion of where they want to go, but they're not actually specific on what that is. So that's where you have to really define the visual parameter of what is going to do that. And it may be that you actually want to sit down and write a list out of what needs to take place to get you from A to B. Because otherwise you're working on it and you're hoping you're going to get there. So it's better to take some time and actually know exactly and write down a list and work down that list. Could you please share your approach to that problem? When do you switch stages and how do you know the piece is done? Well, you switch stages once that stage you have completed or answered the questions. Anna, you had just mentioned the course. I do have the course called Understanding the Illustration Process, and that's available out on swatchesart.com. And I take through the whole process. But how do you kind of think about that yourself? Of when do you know to switch from one stage to the other?
Yeah, it is a difficult question because sometimes you have so many ideas in your head and you want them all in there, and then you are not sure whether it is going to work and you jump ahead to test whether it's going to work, and then you feel like I can't go back because now I put so much time in it, but other stuff does not work anymore, so I have to change it. And this is also a thing that I'm working on personally for myself, because I'm that kind of artist. I'm really like, oh, would it work if it was like maybe glowing like that, and then I put a glow on it and I'm like, wow, I'm not even done with my values yet. But I already add stuff that I have in my mind because I just want to see how it looks if I was putting that in, and then can't go back. And so maybe try to tame yourself a bit and be push yourself to be slower. So make yourself taking more time for each step. And if you really look at the piece at that stage and you see like, yes, it's solid, I can work with that, and maybe take notes on what is not yet at the stage you want to, for example, whether to put a specific person or item or character or whatever somewhere, then jot it down, make a list of what things you else have in your head that maybe is not in there yet, and then maybe try to implement that first, to go back and look how the composition would have to be changed or anything like that. But really, don't rush it. Don't suddenly draw something in it that wasn't meant to be there right from the beginning and hope it will work out. Plan it, how to implement it in there.
I think
and
you
I think
hit
with
on
each
one of
piece
the
it will
big
get
ones.
better.
Yeah, you hit on a big one, that it is a certain level of maturity of being able to restrain yourself. And everybody has a favorite part of the process. And generally, you have a tendency to rush through the things that you don't enjoy as much to get to the other things. And we just have to teach ourselves not to do that. And it's also having a really clear understanding what needs to be achieved at each stage. And so I'm always, at each stage, there are certain things that I need to establish. Questions that have to be asked, and like, okay, say value scheme. I need to make sure that the character stands out. I have certain objectives to achieve when I'm figuring out my value scheme. And I don't move on until all of those objectives are met. So having a clear outline on that, and you can follow my course, and how I outline it. That's what I use. I find it useful. Other people break down their painting process a little different, and that's fine. But you have to know what's achievable at each stage. And then how do you know when the piece is done? Usually the art director lets me know that by whatever deadline they write on the thing. That's when it's done. But there's some other guidelines, and I mentioned that in there as well, which is, if you were to add anything, would it be superfluous? Would it not actually change the quality of the overall content? Would it not add to the actual narrative? If it becomes superfluous, then you don't need to add anymore. Likewise, if there is anything that can be taken away and it not change it, then you maybe need to take some away. So sometimes it's adding more in to reach that level. So the balance that you want is, any more would be superfluous, but any less would be inadequate. And that's the level that you're trying to hit. Something else would be, does it say everything that it needs to say? Is it conveying everything that scene needs to convey? And sometimes that means that you don't need a lot of background information. You don't need details. You don't need, all this extra etching on whatever it is. If it literally just says what the message of the scene is, maybe it's just done. So, with this scene, I'm looking at this. Overall, I think it's an interesting horn. You switched back to the other horn design. I think it's pretty cool. It's different, and I like that off of it. But my main thing is the values, and that it's getting quite dark. So I would want to see this brightened up quite a bit. And it's also the rendering. Now for an MTG, this is still much too line-based. It's more like an ink drawing that has just, had color added to it, which is in itself fine. But for an MTG image, we're going to need a match with one of the popular styles that they look for, which is they're not really looking for line-based unless you're going to be going with something that's much more traditional, like Therese Nilsson. Sometimes Jesper can get away with it on some of his art, but it's a highly different kind of art. But the values, would you say that that's maybe one of the major factors on this one, or how else would you see to make some adjustments here?
Yeah, definitely. So I was not at home today when I received the link by Clint. And I just had a quick look at all the pieces. And when I opened this one on my tiny phone, it was super dark. And it was not immediately clear what I was looking at. And I had to zoom in. And if you have a card that is also not larger than a smartphone. So this tells me already that something is not working with the silhouette and the values.
Mm-hmm.
You should separate the main object from the background. And even to create a dark scene, you don't have to have the whole background super dark.
Yeah.
It can look dark even if you have it at a lighter value. And Clint often puts the example to look up night scenes in movies that are basically also taken at daytime, and they just put a filter on it. But it's basically very bright. Not very bright, but brighter than you'd think for a night scene.
Yeah.
And the color and yeah, the lens and all that, they're kind of determining what makes the light scene look like the night scene. So go and look this up. There is a really cool page that Tyler Edlin was telling us about, Clint, if you
Oh,
can
you
remember.
listen to that, dude? Seriously?
Yes, the Shot Deck site. It is a homepage where you can Google for screenshots from movies. For example, you put in night scene, and then it will give you all the night scenes that it has in its database from movies as screenshots, and that's pretty cool. So Shot Deck, you can look it up. You must.
Yeah,
I don't know.
share that in the comments if you would. Just spell that out and.
Yeah,
Yep.
I can open the page and send you the link. So there you can see that effect pretty, or you can find it very easily. I'll send you the link. Yeah, guys, I'm sending it. Second, everybody freaking out right now.
Anna, what was it? How do you spell shot deck? It's so complicated.
I don't know how to write shot deck. Yeah. Let me give the guys the link and then continue the stream, or I don't know, something horrible will happen here. So yeah, so the object itself also is pretty dark, even if you want to have it at the darker value. There is a lot of blacks in there. That is usually not the style that the modern MTG cards are going for at the moment. I think there are still art styles that use a lot of black.
Yeah, black in
Maybe
itself is not the problem, but
yeah, but the
we're
usage,
losing too much to it. Yeah.
yeah, so it can be here and there as an accent, or but it usually flattens a lot. So if you don't have to take black, it's always good to look for something else, a very dark blue, a very bright lilac, depending on your light source, or adding another light source from below that fills in the shadows, the deepest shadows, something like that. You can play around with that. And yeah, so these were my first thoughts, like really making these stand out from each other and taking out a lot of the black. And as you said earlier, the lines that can be taken out so easily in this piece. So I wondering why the artist Alexei did not do it. So the lines can be taken out super easily here.
Yeah. But you need to support those more before you can take them out. Because, like, if you take out the lines of the pillars back here...
No, but it's not much work to
No,
over
exactly.
them and
Yeah.
disguise them. That's what I mean.
And so, like, all of this, we have no idea what's going on in there. So let's just say that there's, like, another, fabric piece hanging down. But we can't be losing too much to the black. Because on a card, it's really, really dull. And there's only a few circumstances where you can really get away with it and it's okay. And this isn't really one of them. So we want to make sure that we have some tone in there, and it's enough to kind of be understanding what's going on. Maybe these, just some sort of pillar system underneath it. So make sure that you're working with whatever the base value is, the local color of that object, and then add in the blacks should really just appear in really occlusion shadow areas where literally light cannot possibly get up underneath, wherever this thing is. But everywhere else, we want to try to keep away from black, yeah, just because it's so flattening. But the scene itself, it's a really cool shape. It's kind of interesting. I like this is actually one of those cases where I am a fan of the God rays coming in, though I'd probably soften out the ones in the back more. So the ones a little closer might be a little clearer, and the ones in the back, I'd let those get a little fuzzed out just to keep some variance between the sharpness of them all. And it also helps the more distinct shapes here stand out. Now, so that'd be like a nice place to have the light there. Now, this is a principle is the pairings, to watch for the pairings. And this is coming up on several of the images in this particular set that we're going to be looking at. And so this is where you want to look for your value pairings. In this case, what we have is a dark against a medium. It's not really against light. This would be light, right? So, and there needs to be more mid-tone there. But, so that's dark versus medium. And you want to just have it down to 3, right? You have light, medium, and dark. And what you're trying to avoid is a light pair, a medium pair, or a dark pair. And initially we have that a bunch. All right, so we've got a lot of darks on darks, dark, and all of these values are just way too similar. And we're going to lose all of that. If you get it little, like Anna was saying, on her phone, she couldn't distinguish a lot of it. And we also want to look for ways to change light on light pairs. And we always want to have one of those against the opposite one, or one of the different ones. And so in this case, if we can add more midtones on the background, so I've lightened up a bunch of that, then it allows the midtone to contrast against all of the darks on this side and any of the lights that I add on that side. So you can just go around your image and push one way or the other in order for that to all stand out. Clint, Anna, thank you, the artist, I assume it is. Thank you for your answers. I leave lines because I almost feel insecure without them. Yeah, and I leave my lines in for quite a while as well. Because you do want those as your guides to retain your accuracy. But you can do what I do, which is the more that I develop the painting under my lines, then I begin lowering the opacity. So, I'll work for an hour, and then I'll take them down 10% in opacity. And then the more that I just develop the painting, the more I turn the opacity down until I don't have the lines anymore, because I have enough information in the painting that it's its own guide, right? So I don't need the assistance of the lines at that point. Okay, well, I think that's enough here. We've got to be moving on. It's really great topics on that, though. Matthew also has a question. MTG miniatures are really bulky. Would a more lean, elkish figure confuse the silhouette with a satyr or other established creature families, doubting it? Let's stick to the bulkier minotaur, particularly because it is about somebody trying to be restrained, and you want to show a lot of effort against that. So the size of the figure and its muscles, it doesn't, you could thin him down a little bit, and that's okay. You don't have to be like over the top, bulky, but definitely on the stronger side. All right, so May is up next. It said, clearly I do not know what I'm doing, but I had fun doing it, so that's good. And I think that's a really, really great attitude, where you jump into a challenge like this, knowing that you don't know what you're doing, but you're setting out to learn and to have a good time at it, and that's awesome. The positive attitude about that is honestly going to help you improve more than if you were being really critical on yourself. So I'm glad to hear it. It was nice doing something different than cartoons and figuring out how to blend stuff. Well, cool. You have a chance to look at this, Anna. Did you have any initial thoughts here?
Yeah, so I think for not knowing what this person is doing, it's a really good painting. So I think you did well. Just keep doing that. And um, besides the values with the usage of black a lot, I first actually would point out what this person could do in order to improve the art is the thinking in forms
Mm-hmm.
and trying to find the surface of the form, how it is wrapped around in
Yes.
3D space. So, for just as an example, the horn itself looks very flat, especially at the parts where it's held by that figurine. Also, the opening is very, yeah, as you're doing line, I see that you're
Yeah, I'm
doing
trying to
lines
add some
now.
contour.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this roundness can come back more, yeah. And also that the hand is holding this horn, it looks very much like he's holding something very, very straight, like paper or something, with
Yeah,
a very sharp
angular,
edge
right.
there. Yeah, angular, that's the word I'm looking for. So, yeah, how the fingers are wrapping around this object. Maybe we wouldn't even see so much of the fingers depending on the object and how heavy it is if you
Mm-hmm.
make it realistically. Yeah, if you don't have it on your forearms but just on the hands. And this all would be good to have maybe a huge object, maybe your yoga mat rolled up, and you take a picture of it, how you hold it, so that you see how your hands and arms wrap around that object.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, and this continues to the other things as well. The um, at some parts I see you already tried to get in the 3D shape, like with the top of the wings,
Mm-hmm.
but then they feel really flat again at the bottom more. The hood of the creature, of the character also, the top as well, there's folds running down, but the seam of it is so thin there is no depth. You did not think about the depth of the clothes, for example, so you were not thinking of the whole thing in 3D. These are the things that come with time, but they're all connected about forms in 3D space. And as boring as this study might be to you, to just put some cones and cubes and paint them in different settings without any other special things around it, without characters and fancy effects, this is the base that everything is built on. So I can just recommend you to do that and go for it, and always think about your stuff. Maybe draw the what the hatching lines are, the lines, like grid lines that are wrapping around the objects. Maybe um, paint them on. So thin lines that shows you how the object is formed, and then paint over that, and always keep that in mind, how this goes away from you or comes to you,
Mm-hmm.
to create this illusion of depth and perspective.
Yeah, we definitely have to think about that. We have to think about the volumes. And ultimately, of course, the image is two-dimensional. But in order to get that sense of 3D, we have to understand what the actual 3D form would be, because it makes all kinds of subtle differences with the angles and with the way the light wraps around it, the way that it shades and bends. And this isn't a simple thing. We're not saying that this is something that you can just, go look up and boom, you've got it. This is something that you'll have to study, and this is something we all improve on over a period of years. But this is kind of where you are. What I would suggest is, if you want to continue with this piece, what you can do is just make a new layer over top of this, and we want to refine the concept, so we just make like a white layer over this and set it down, halfway or so. And then we can just come in and we want to refine the drawing. So you come to, your horn, maybe you start with the horn and you just go, okay, well, I like the general placement, and overall, I think the composition, the idea of the scene, the elements that you have in the scene, those are all good. So let's keep those. But let's get a more accurate uh, forms and more nuanced shapes. And we want to start by doing a redrawing where we make all those things accurate. And then after you do that, you implement that in the full painting. But when you're trying to make all these changes in the painting while you're handling the values, while you're handling the colors, it's a lot more difficult. And so it's better just to isolate the topic and let your full attention be on the topic by just redrawing it first, and then you come back and you do it with the painting. Now here is also where I've got to point out we got a lot of blank spaces here. If you were to go through all of these stages and have all of these references, it's going to help you out. All right. It's not really for me. You will get out what you put into it. And if you put in these and you are relying on these and you're learning from all these, it's going to make your image better. So my rule of thumb is, unless I am an expert on whatever that thing is, I need to go find a reference for it. Procco is an expert at drawing the anatomy. He probably doesn't need a reference in order to draw an arm or a leg well. He's literally an expert. But maybe he doesn't know how to draw a vehicle very well. So he might go look at a photo for a vehicle if he has to draw one. In this case, there can be a lot of things that you go, well, I don't really know how to, draw some of this stuff. So here's some things I would look at. And I went out and grabbed some. Statue of a guy in a hood. Similar angle. Close enough. I could go off of something like that. Images of candles around characters. See, I'm not sold that we actually need this window back there. That would be the one thing that I would probably just take out, because the lighting from the candles itself could be really cool. And, I'm just looking up photos, candles in movies. And there we go. It was a scene from Romeo and Juliet, I think. And that gives you a lot of information about lighting, about color, that you could use into your image. You wouldn't have to guess how those things would balance out. This is the statue of Narsil in Lord of the Rings. The statue holding the shards of Narsil. Again, another view of that here too. And this is also like, if you're going to have a window, look at the way that they've got some of the designs and the colors and how much that adds to the scene. Where over here we've got a very basic kind of geometric brick pattern behind it. So it's getting all of the ideas that you already have and finding more interesting, more colorful, more moody ways to do these things based on references. Okay, let's wrap it up on May's good image. May, of course, if you continue to work on the piece, then post it out on the groups and let us see, and we'd love to see what you do with it. Olivia is up next. Okay, Olivia's got a lot going on with her character. Said Discord mentioned using more of the bottom right space with other characters. Ended up adding sheep solidifying this horseman as the worst farmer ever and giving Snack some purpose away from his owner. Good. Almost finished. Snack is the dog, by the way. And there is a lot of things I'm liking about this. I think it's working quite well. Everything reads well. It's a clean illustration. How did this hit you? What do you think you would like to see changed, or do you have any particular comments about this?
Yeah, so I really enjoy this piece a lot. It is very well rendered. The amount of detail is very well handled. I like the creature itself, how it is designed. I just said to Clint before stream, he reminds me a bit of Nautilus from
Mm.
League of Legends with the whole top heavy, no neck, glowy eye guy. So it's a solid design, it's understandable, and the whole painting is readable. And I think the values work, the composition works, it's all good. I was wondering, maybe Clint, you can do you can do the measuring with the sheep on the right corner, bottom corner. I feel like this is my personal feeling that they're too small um, in comparison to the scaling we have in this piece. Which also means the house might be a bit too small, but I'm not sure. The sheep definitely look too small
Well, the
to
sheep are
me.
too small with the house at that size. If we made the house smaller, the sheep would actually look more accurate.
Yeah, yeah. So this is what I thought. So this somehow the scaling
Yeah.
did not work here correctly. The second thing, this is a nitpicky thing, but about the trees in the background, especially in the right upper corner, they are very straight and very how to say that? They are all the
Mm-hmm.
same size, the same thickness, the same um, shapes of yeah, like this branches going to the left. They are like too close, too
Uniform.
uniform. Thank you. Oh, it's already late. My vocabulary just went down, right? Um, yeah, so maybe having there. So, but this is nitpicky. Maybe most people won't even notice when you look at it. It's just my first thought when I look at this wall, the sheep, and then these trees, and the
Mm-hmm.
rest I was just enjoying, and did not find anything to, yeah, throw me off in here. So, yeah, maybe the snout of the, or I don't know what the front part, the mouth of the horse might be also a bit small, but this might also be I really don't know what this is called, what they have around their hats. I just know the German term for it, but
Oh, it's a
uh,
harness or a
yeah.
bridle, I guess.
Oh, you say also for the hat, the harness. Okay, like for the dog. Okay. So the harness might also maybe just make it look wrong or off.
Yeah, the jaw is extending too far forwards, I think,
Yeah, there's
and maybe starting a
something
little too far
with the
back.
hat. Yeah. So, but it's it. That's all. Good. Love it.
Yeah, and then that's
So
probably,
Clint
I
will
mean,
see.
yeah, a little different there. Okay, overall, I think it's reading quite well, and at this point, it's some smaller changes, and these sort of changes are going to be ones that I would make, and they're a little more personal discretion. Uh, can't necessarily give you an absolute rule on some of these, so you can take that for what it is. First thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna turn that down a little bit. Now it's cool in here. Okay, I was kind of thinking about this earlier. So I was looking at the piece and I was like, okay, it's good. Uh, it's definitely good, but how can we make it even better? How can we make it more interesting? Because I'm looking at maybe some of these other pieces over here, and I feel like in some ways they've got something that this one doesn't. What do they have? And one of the things I would do is I would change this guy. And I saw this actually across several of the images that got sent in of that putting the characters, the human characters, are sitting almost on the bottom of the frame. And you have the full figure of the human character right there sitting at the bottom of the frame. And again, like I said, not inherently wrong, but it limits the scene a little bit. Now, I would change it. I would make it more like that. And so that the character, because he is overlapping the frame, he actually pulls us into the scene a little more. Where this feels a little too posed, right? And when you can just have everybody's like perfectly in there, he's a little too posed. Now, it might pull him out just a little bit, like if you want to have just separation of those back legs or something. But I would personally go somewhere in that vein. And I'm also trying to think about something more interesting. His upper body, the overall bulk of him, okay, that's cool. And it works well for kind of an elemental creature. But the eyes themselves, it's like they don't really fit in with the design of the rest of it. We don't have any other glowing bits on him. And the area around the eyes isn't like being folded or created in a way that would kind of make it eye-like. It just feels like they were kind of added on the top. So if it were me, I would probably take them out, and then I would change this so that it had a pattern that was more like a mouth, and they could be like pieces of wood that are breaking off and sticking out. And so you can come around here. I'm just doing it really quickly in order to kind of get the idea. But we've got like all of these teeth sort of things opening up as they go inside. And like I saw the end of this thing and it looked like it was fractured off, and I thought, oh, that's actually kind of cool. And you just want to come around and like make these like jaggedy kind of broken teeth sort of feeling as it's going in. And then if you want to come in here and add, you know, like a glow inside of there, I guess you can reverse that. Then you could have like this kind of glowing mouth thing on the body, right? Or you could just leave it dark and then have a little bit of light kind of hitting the mouth. But I think that would make him more interesting. It would make more use of the overall space. And you could have like this mossy stuff that you've got there. And it's almost like pouring out. Almost like it would be saliva or something. But it's actually these strands of mossy vines kind of dripping out of it. What do you think about something like that? You find that more interesting? I find it more aggressive.
Well, it adds a lot to the mood for this piece.
Mm-hmm.
Always when you have like this moss and grass hanging down, it gets more of old and weird down, or coming from the swamp, or it just adds a little bit to the storytelling of that character, where he came from.
Yeah.
So I think it definitely looks good.
I would try to open up some of this here so he doesn't have a completely solid silhouette. A lot of this is just, it's completely filled in. So I just want to break that up, make him feel like he's got layers that are kind of pulling out in different directions. More like that. This could be adjusted so that these are a little more flat in tone. They don't need to be quite so bright there. And then if it's wet, then it's not going to have an even light across it. It's going to have more like specular wet highlights that kind of trace along it on a couple of different patterns and spots. And so it'll brighten up like that. It won't brighten up completely evenly if it's wet. And that's where you can kind of get a distinction between the two of those, of where the dry and wet. The other thing is looking at the rendering. We have a little more of a sameness going around. And again, this is one of those things that you almost have to have a feel for it a little bit. But this is what I'm talking about. When we look at the vine tendril things, and we've got like a lit side, the midtone, and the shadow side, and we've got a lit side and midtone and shadow side, and we have a lit tone, midtone, and shadow side, and a lot of these are just being basically rendered the same way. And going back to what we were talking about earlier, can we change up the pairing? Can we have a light on dark pairing? Can we have some of them being more silhouette? So like up here, maybe these aren't actually being lit on the top. Maybe these are just being silhouetted. So these, we don't have the edge light on those. Those only just get dark over there. And maybe the same thing for these. We don't necessarily have to show the light. Maybe his shadow is being cast on them that keeps them from having any edge light on them. And don't forget the power of silhouettes. Not everything has to have a light on it. So those could just be silhouettes, and then if you need to add atmosphere behind them, that's fine. We just put some atmosphere back here. This is the perfect place to add some atmosphere and not have any issue with having to explain it. And then that allows us to have the dark on medium pair of the silhouetted vines against the midtone background. And then over here, maybe you do the reverse, right? Maybe over here, the background's all more mid-tone. Again, mid-tone backgrounds are great because you can make the character light or dark and it's still going to show up. But these are now thin and they're being backlit so that they actually stand out because they're lighter. Those are all going to be lighter. It's like hair that's, even black hair that if it's brightly backlit, it looks white. Right? And so we have various combinations of some are lit and shadowed, some are just shadowed, some are just lit. Same thing with like these vines over here, that if you're backlighting some of these vines, you could get a really nice kind of glow from them as they're going back in there. And I wouldn't want to miss the opportunity to have some nice glow, and you could add that maybe into some of these as well. Maybe some little hanging bits off of this. Yeah. So those are all kind of some subtle changes, but I think ultimately it gives a better visual variety. So you can see how these all have a very similar render to them. But by actually changing up, so some are all light, some are all dark, some have light and dark, gives more variance to that rendering. Any thoughts here?
Yeah, so I like the changes a lot. I'm not sure about because I liked how the at the back of the creature, these tangly thingies, how she rendered it, but I think if it's rendered out and she can do it as well as she did before again, then I just liked how the light on some of these were hitting what are they called? Lians? I don't know.
What?
Roots, or I don't know what they are called.
Oh, yeah.
Roots or, yeah. So I just liked how she did the rendering back there. But yeah, it's definitely good ideas, and I also think it's a cool thing to consider not having eyes but just a mouth.
Yeah.
And he's like, I don't know, walking around and understanding his surroundings by touching everything with the roots and stuff coming from his body. So like, yeah, haptical approach. So yeah, that's cool. It's a cool thing. Yeah, we as human always start thinking first like it needs eyes because it's creepy if it sees me or something. But sometimes it's maybe even creepier if you don't know how the fuck he understood that you're standing there because he doesn't have eyes, and it's just double double of horror because you don't know how to hide from him because he doesn't have eyes.
Yeah, the
So
more alien you make it, it can be really disconcerting because you don't know how to read it. Its expressions, you don't know where it's looking, and that's very off-putting. You know, and here
yeah.
we could have like more of the glow. I'm trying to find bigger bigger changes. Like this region of the image is warmer or brighter, and this whole part of the arm that's getting close, that's the closest, we might let it warm up. Um, and then maybe this transitions into, more atmosphere and stuff back there. But, wonderful piece, a lot of work put into it, a lot of good work put into it, and hopefully you find something in there that is helpful, Olivia, and we hope
Yeah,
you'll jump into a new challenge soon.
it's a cool one. Ah, wines. Thank you. Yeah, it's really late here. It's like 10:15 the evening, so my brain is not working anymore. I need my weekend.
Oh, that's,
I
I
just
think a lot of
pretend
people
it's
do.
and not my bad English. It's the time of the day.
Anna actually knows English really well. She just,
Yeah,
whenever
yeah.
she
Super
can't think of what to
eloquent.
say, she just says, "Oh, I don't know
Yeah,
English." Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Clint and me are conversing a lot about poetry of the 19th century, and no,
He that
let's get on.
outlives this day and comes safe home will stand a tiptoe when this day is named. Yeah.
Oh yeah, Clint, give us a poem. That's good. Then Kong will feel the mood for his homework today. You start with some poetry for him.
Yeah, maybe we should have like a Shakespeare challenge. You have to depict the scenes from Shakespeare.
Oh,
Uh,
yeah.
Okay, so this one is Patricia. Says, hi again, Clint and Anna. Well, hi, Patricia. Really struggled with the values on this one. I know you can push me in the right direction. Thank you for the feedback. Meow Trisha. Meow Trisha's in the chat, isn't she? Or maybe not.
I think she is. She usually
Yep.
is.
Okay. So in the original version, I'll pull up a little bit. In the sketch that was sent, it was based on these concepts. So it was a much more of a bat creature, a bat monster. We're trying to pull back away from that being like a living, breathing creature to being more elemental in nature, so that it was literally made of the elements of the earth, vines and roots and grass and rocks and that sort of thing. But that, of course, necessitated a fairly significant redesign of the general character, and that's what we see down here. And fiddlesticks, right? That that's what you're thinking. Oh, Kitty came to see us.
Yeah, it's a fiddlesticks feeling. I had that too. Definitely. But fiddlesticks rework because the other one sucked. But yeah, definitely.
Okay, well,
No,
if,
it's
if
cool.
Kitty's jumped up here, she obviously wants to be on camera for a moment.
Yeah, just give her some love. It's a kitty stream now.
Well, there she is. See.
We must
What?
stream with camera again, then I can make a puppy stream again.
And when I got her as a kitten, one of the first things I
Oh.
did is I held her upside down like this. Because I knew that later I wanted to be able to hold her like this. And I had to get her used to it when she was really little. Otherwise, if you pick up a grown cat and try to do this, they're not going to have it. So you gotta get them used to it when they're little, and she doesn't spaz out or anything.
Also, that's the thing. We are looking at Meow, Trisha's piece, so that's why she came
Yeah.
up. And it's like, oh, it's a cat's piece. Let me see. Who's Meow Trisha? Is she hot? Can I meet
Okay.
her?
Oh. You want to sit down right there? Okay, she's going to sit on the edge of the desk. All right. There, she can sit right there. Yeah, and of course, that is exactly who the icon is based on there. It's based on Fuzzy. Okay. With this one, I think there's a lot of good stuff going on and a couple of things that I think we lost from the earlier version that we actually want to get back a little bit. So, compositionally, that's where I'm having a little difficulty with it, which shouldn't be a big deal to change. And that is on the original one, we had the character large and centered, right? And we had a good pose, and he was obviously taking up the centermost mass. But here, this kind of an interesting thing is that because we've pushed him over to that right side, and we have this dynamic of him looking at this guy looking back, we've actually changed the nature of what this scene is about. It is no longer about the character, it is about the interaction of the two characters. And we need to center him back up for it to be about this guy and not be about the interaction between the two of these. This feels more like some sort of event that takes place rather than the showcase of this particular creature. Would you read it that way, or if you were trying to make that change, would you try making it a different direction?
Yeah, so I'd also read it like that. To be honest, I have not much thought for ideas for this piece. I was really looking forward to your ideas for it. Also, I feel like the balance is a little bit off. It feels a little bit too tilted
Yeah.
without having anything on the right to balance it out. So repositioning can already help a lot with that. And yeah, maybe having some object or another character or a character's arm or hand or whatever, anything that could fit in there to fill in the corner
Well,
right
we can
down
see
there.
based on the original that
Like
she
trunk, tree
repositioned
trunk.
the pose, and we moved that. Oh, wrong direction. We moved that back arm from being more up
Mm-hmm.
to being really low against the ground, and I don't think that's a good call because it's not clear that it's an arm at this point, and it would be really great to have that arm back over there. Oh, we have that turned down. It would be better to have that arm over there and be easier to read that as an arm. So I'd probably go back more to the pose that you had there with this guy and more of the centering. I am usually telling people crop in, get rid of the unnecessary, get rid of the unnecessary. But this is one where we almost need to crop out a little bit and get some of that space back in order to be able to have a fuller idea of who this character is. And yeah, I would get these buildings and I would adjust those buildings. They're really, really tilted right now to the point where, like, if this guy is at this angle and upright is this, that guy's almost laying down. So we've got to make sure that we bring them back a little bit and say that we get them back to something like that would be fine. It still has a distinct tilt to it, but not so much that it feels like the guy's going to be falling over. Yeah, something more here. And oh, this fly is really trying to land on me. Okay. I'm almost feeling like a wrought iron fence. Like coming along here that he's smashed over. You've got like broken wrought iron pieces. Sound effects. Just to break that up a little bit. Yeah. And we could step this up a little bit and have this guy already bloodied up. Like he got hurt when this thing showed up, right? And so we could already have him damaged. Yeah. Okay, now let's talk a bit from here about the design of the character, now that we've repositioned a couple of things. I'm still getting a little too much of the solid form. I think the overall shapes are good. The pose is reading, as long as we can get a little more of that back arm. And I guess we'd take this out since that's not really an arm anymore. Yeah. And then we need to come in here and bring out that this is made of different things. So what you could do is you start making this into like vines and stuff. And you're picking out a piece and you're bringing it around like that and going, okay, well, that'll be one piece. And then I'm going to grab another piece and I'm going to wrap it underneath that one. And this is actually a good way to do it, is that you've blocked in the overall form, you've got the pose, and now you start kind of coming in here and you just start weaving. You start making this all woven together in lots of layers of vines and dirts and stuff. And occasionally you break it up and maybe you add some clumps of dirt or something in there. And you can add little twigs or stuff, little kind of indiscriminate little pieces that are stuck in there. And if it's all going in, then we might see some more glow between them, right? Back in the dark areas. And it would just take some time, but you would have to step through each little area and do a design of what is making that. It's like same thing on the hand. This is still a very organic hand. So we need to figure out, are these, wound pieces of vines? Is this a rock sticking out that has something coming off of it? We need to start subdividing this into different organic pieces. With the mouth, that mouth shows up well, but yet we also want to make sure that it's got some dimension to it. So we want more layers to it. And we want some of the teeth maybe up here to be coming out. Okay. What would be some of your thoughts to just kind of take this up another level as far as the design of the character?
Well, as I said, I really did not come up with good ideas for this one. I just thought it was very solid in rendering and everything, and it has a very good work of edges between sharper edges and softer ones, and this feels very like close to the style like MTG is actually, because they don't render out everything like in super detailed hard edges. And I think she has a very good feeling for that already, that many people struggle with on where to put what kind of edges. And she seems to have the supernatural feel already for that. And I'm so intrigued by that, that it's hard for me to pay attention to something else. So definitely the character needs more emotion, maybe more frightened face. For the character itself, the creature, I'm not good at character and creature design right now, but some vines, little mushrooms growing out of it, some grass, moss, whatever you can find out there in the woods can basically put there and help. Just look what shape languages these have, like more rounded, or what splintered wood has for a kind of shape language in comparison to wood that has been worked on by rain and moss and whatever, and see not to mix it up in places where maybe you need more unity for readability. So it's a balancing act, and it's really hard for me personally still to do, but I think you can say much more on that, on how to find the balance between having a plain boring character and an overworked one. So how do you go about that?
I think that has to come from your value studies and your color studies. Because usually an overworked piece is one where it starts getting too broad of contrast. You start bringing out too much detail because you're adding in too much light into areas that shouldn't have it. You're adding in too much dark into areas that shouldn't have it. And when you are maxing out that, when you're maxing out your value range in that given area, then don't add anything else. Otherwise, you're going to be over rendering it. Now, I was also thinking beforehand, if you want to have ideas of how to kind of go about doing a body like this, that's kind of the earthy body, go look at like Swamp Thing. Swamp Thing is a character that's been around for years and years and years in the comics, DC Comics. And I'm sure there's a lot of paintings about him. And just go see how some other artists have rendered that sort of thing. This is a character that you can actually obscure a lot of that in shadow. So it's mainly the areas that are going to be around a light source or having direct light on them. A lot of the other stuff, you don't really need much detail at all. But you do need to just suggest some of the flow, the forms. Yep. Okay, we'll wrap it up there on Patricia's. Thanks for joining in, Patricia. And we have Tim Thomas up next. He's the only one doing the puzzle box. So no particular comments here. Just as critiques are welcome. And this is a huge step up from the original concept you sent in. So we'll pull up there if people missed the earlier one. This is the concept we looked at. And the feedback was overall idea, cropping, colors, all works. But let's make the box more complex. Let's make it look like it has lots of things to move and open and turn and all that. And so I'm guessing you did this 3D model or you found it. I don't know. It's a pretty complex little 3D model, but it's right in line with what we're looking for. So excellent reference, creation for your reference. I don't know. But this scene is working quite well in my book. I would mainly consider the scene just not finished, but no major changes. What about you? How did this hit you?
Yeah, so I was also having a very positive impression when I looked at this. I like the newly added details, the little levers and things that can be twisted, rotated, and turned, and yeah, how clean everything is, and you really paid attention to the readability, even if in small size. I think this is very nice, very nice concept and design. I'm never done anything similar like that. I just thought maybe the top of the box could still have something, because I don't know what the two objects that are on the top of the box, like this star shape, what they're actually doing. So whether they are, I don't know, whether they have to be in a specific position or anything like that. So, or whether they are just ornaments there. Maybe they can interact a little bit more with the box, maybe by having something coming from the sides towards it. But as I said, I have never done a design like that, and I don't know what possibilities you have there. I just felt like it's a little bit floating there and not interacting with anything else in the box. The rest is working so well, like the sides of the box and the what you move to open and close the box, and the I don't know, it's on the top, the top of the corner of the painting. So this is all done so well. So I thought we could maybe have something more in the middle as well, interacting with that. The values on the hand are at some point a little bit too dark, even for how to say it politically correct, dark skin, black skin.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't want to offend anyone. So some parts look a bit muddy and burnt, even like burnt. So yeah, some work on that would probably good as well. Yeah, but it's for it from me.
Okay, good observations. I'm with you. I either have to accept that the centerpiece is the final, that he's fully opened it and then he's trying to take this thing out, and that's kind of like the prize inside, right? Or it needs to be somehow another piece that he can do something with. I would consider if you wanted to make it, another thing. Maybe there are latches that come off the sides, that hold it in place that need to be removed, or there could be symbols on the ends of each of the star points, and then you see like symbols on the inside of these. That could also be something. But if he's finished opening it, then I'm prone to think to get this little like blue gem thing and make the gem thing this big. And so it's clearly like that is the centerpiece that he was aiming for. And he's got to that centerpiece. But right now it's so small that that little blue thing on a card side would even hardly be visible. Okay, other thoughts. Made some notes beforehand. One has to do with the perspective and the stuff on the table behind it. And the other one is the gold needs to be way more shiny, right? And that's why I said I felt like it was just more unfinished than it was, being wrong. The perspective on the books do feel wrong. I don't feel like the books are very far away. It's like, what, maybe a foot away from his hands? So we're not really going to get the book that much smaller that far away. That book would literally have to be about this big for it to look that size on the table. And we're assuming that this is a, normal size book. So I'm going to think that this book needs to be considerably bigger and also at a different perspective. This book almost feels like it's flat to us. So we're probably going to get a perspective that's more like that and get the pages doing this sort of thing, right? And the same thing over here. These books would feel like they're rather too small. And let's say that we leave that one. This book would need to be more like that to even get close to what I would feel to be, more acceptable. So just watch the size on those and watch the perspective on that. That can be kind of confusing, but hopefully that helps. I ran a hard light filter and try to throw some adjustments on there, getting a little more of the blue glow from the inside and trying to get away from the muddy tones that we have on the outside where things are getting very grayed out. The shadows are very gray. The light is very neutral. So using some orange in that light just to give it some color, give it some pop, and try to add some blues and some violets into the shadow to keep them from graying out too much. Then use a linear dodge layer to start adding some shine on the gold itself, because we're just not getting enough of the feeling of the reflection on a lot of this. And so you can just go across here and play with it. It should always have a certain amount of gradation. It's always getting lighter or darker, warmer or cooler. And we want to make sure that we're incorporating that. Like this is too flat. All that's too flat. Gold's not going to do that. Gold is going to get lighter, darker, warmer, or cooler. And so you want to pick a spot and just start kind of gradating out of it. And any place where gold reflects back on itself, it's going to get extra warm. So any place that you've got that, you want to hit it with more orange. Otherwise, the area is going to go probably more yellow. So down here, that's going to be orange because both of those are going to be able to bounce off of each other. This might be more orange here because that's going to hit the inside of that one and bounce out. It's going to be more orange in each of those corners. This is probably going to get more hot in there. Because this is all just gold bouncing off of itself. So that's going to get hotter in that area. Same thing back in there. I'm probably not going to go to black. Gold is so reflective that black is just a difficult thing for it to become. Because it's going to just keep passing the light around. And it can, of course, get to properly bright if it's facing towards a light source. And this is another one, like that's too flat. So we need to find something in there that can be more well lit. And then let that go off a little bit. We're probably going to have some light. Going to manifest more there because it's going to hit this wall. And it's going to bounce over to that wall. It's actually going to get brighter in the corner in that case. Yep. So that's how I would approach that. As far as the hands, you probably need to lighten those up, like Anna was saying. We're just getting to almost actual black on the outside in an area that really has plenty of light in the scene. So we want to make sure that we're adding in some tones just to bring that up a bit and keep that from going too black. Oh, that's linear dodge. It's like, why is that getting so bright? Yeah, so we want to make sure that. Also, you know, people with really dark skin, often their palms are lighter than the rest of their skin. And so you might want to take that into account as you're rendering the skin as well. Okay, anything you want to add on to those before we move on?
Yeah, I really liked how you brought out the gold there, and people in chat are like, "Oh, Tyrion, finally!" So, you're really good at that. It looks so cool. Yeah.
You know, guys, gold is definitely one of those things that is worth taking some time to have a feeling of how to handle it, because man, everybody ends up having to do it at some point. Everybody ends up having to paint gold at some point, and it's just good to have some rules of thumb and have an idea of how you want to approach it.
Yeah, and gold has one like skin that when warm light falls on it and bounces off of it and gets reflected again, for example, in a crease, then the warmth adds and it gets more and more warm. This is something very specific with gold. And that's an effect that can really turn things for you. That really can make it look much better. So as you can see, also Clint used a little bit more warmth in some creases there, and that's such a very interesting aspect of drawing gold and warm light on skin in creases.
Yeah, so, and that is, I wouldn't say it's unique to gold. But among the metals, that is a more unique quality that it has, is that it does add its warmness to itself when it, reflects back up on the same material. So you could go around and add that sort of thing and just try to give that gleam to the box and really make this something beautiful and shiny and interesting. This is really well done work, Tim. The design of the box itself is really, really excellent. It's cool to look at. It seems really involved, and you ought to be proud. Good stuff. Okay, next one up is Tyler Vale. Is Tyler in the chat? Have we seen him?
Let me scroll a bit. Not recently if he was here, but sometimes people are like lurking, and then when it's their turn, then like,
oh, it's me.
That's me.
So Tyler says, I'm not sure where this one went wrong, but I tried my darnest. Thanks for the feedback. What? No, I don't think it went wrong. I think maybe you still have some work to do on it. But yeah, solid stuff going on. Really liking the design of the character. There's a lot of cool stuff going on with this guy. For me, it's really more of an issue of balancing some of the values and some clarity about making sure, like this hand over here, I'm losing too much of that hand, so I wanted to use some values to make that difference. But the gnarly little trees and these shapes, I think they're working really well. These sort of like little spiky trees. I forgot what kind of tree that is, but I have seen it, and they do have really interesting shapes. The clothes working quite well. But yeah, for me, it comes down to mainly the values. What's hitting you about this one, Anna?
Yeah, it's definitely the value, especially again of the black that is used nearly like an outline, especially on the hand and ribs, but not elsewhere. So you can go in for a style that is in like this in between, and not speaking for MTG, but like in general. There is style that goes like an in between of having outlines and having it rendered out. And this is how the hand is looking, but the rest isn't. So the rest isn't, it's like more going into a blurry aquarelic kind of painting. So you must decide on the style you are pursuing. And yeah, I feel like if we have more of one value for the arm and some parts of the bodies, just to unify things more, it would add to the readability a bit more, and really pushing also up the depth by giving more atmosphere between the arm and the body, like you already started but did not like push through completely, just to make things more sticking out. And the trees that are in the right corner, I think they're part of his body, right? But to me, because of the amount of blurriness and the bright value, they look like they are further behind than the creature is. So we need to unify that back into the body. Also, they are also again very unvaried and similar to each other, like the way they are moving or they have grown all in the same directions. It is getting a bit repetitive, and we could change the forms there, or just take out some, or I don't know, just do something to get this fuzzy shapes there out of there, and find something more readable and fitting to the rest of the creature. Just a nitpicky thing, but I think it might look cool for the buildings in the background if they were not like straight up down, but a little bit tilted, like in to the right or something. They don't have to be perfectly vertical. You could either have a Dutch angle for that, so that they're tilted, or you can put a little bit fish islands on it, that they're a little bit bent or something. So I just feel like it's a bit stiff for the buildings to be this super vertical and super straight, you know. But this might be personal preference, and Clint might say, "No, let's leave it like that." But it's just my opinion on that part.
I know. I
And
think those are good comments, especially
yeah,
about the trees there towards that right side and part of him and part of the background. I'm not really sure. Uh, you know, we got some good comments here as well. Uh, Drumayer mentions owning gold is particularly useful. That's really good advice. Like, if you need to paint gold, the best thing that you can do is really go out and just buy yourself a gold bar and paint it for a while. And every artist should have at least one good gold bar as part of their collection with the rest of their resources and material so that they can paint gold more accurately. So, you got yours, don't you, Anna? Anna's gone. Okay.
sorry, my microphone is acting acting weird on me. No, yeah. You're right. Can you repeat the question? I just had a trouble with my microphone. Didn't
I was
hear
just
it.
saying that if people really want to learn how to paint gold well, they ought to just get some gold. Just get a bar and paint it for a while to figure out how it works.
Yeah, you're still lagging for me. Let me close the stream for a second because I really can't. I thought it's my microphone or something interfering, but it's not.
I
So you're
don't
lagging
know.
for me a bit.
Okay,
Okay.
well, we'll move on here with Tyler's
Sorry,
chat
guys.
about this for a moment. So
Yeah.
I went through and made some changes, and I'm trying to adjust some of the values. And the first thing is I have a darkened layer. And I have a darkened layer that's set to 54%. And that's just to knock down some of the really light values. We don't need as powerful of a light on him. So I'm trying to knock that down. And I'm also bringing the values back into some of these buildings. What we have here is it's really light and it's really grayed out. And once we get that light and value, we start losing the color out of it. And so I'm trying to bring some of that back. And usually, if you get to the situation where you're running into this really kind of muddy gray brightness, uh, that means that you missed a turn back there somewhere. And what you need to do is figure out what the more elegant solution is. And that's what we're going to try to go for. So we got that darkened layer and we tone that down. Next up is a lightened layer. In this case, I'm trying to brighten up some things that are too dark. And this is where we really get that arm to start coming out, don't we? Because we're using some of that atmosphere, the cool atmosphere of the environment, and the slightly greenish glow from the body. And now that hand shows up really well. And we could zoom out, and it's a lot more readable that way. So that's that. Also, just establishing back the color in the windows of the building. And we don't really need to have very much information at all other than the silhouette and the actual windows themselves on the building. So here, because the whole building was getting so light, we're losing any kind of real notice of the window. So we could have enough of it there that that's going to work through. Now, Anna had mentioned like trying to change the building up so it's not so static. The solution that I went with was letting some of these clouds actually go in front of the building, which allows it to break up the shape of those straight lines, and it softens it out without putting the whole thing out of focus. Okay, then we have a color layer. Now this is a small one, and what you're going to see is just a small change around the tones here. The hands I've made more gray, almost like they're burnt wood. Then there was more browns up in here, and I can flip it on and off, and you can see that subtle difference there. The hands gray out, because right now a lot of the green is just very monotone. And what we wanted to do is establish some gradients where it's like it's more green, and then it becomes more gray when it comes down to here. And we want to establish that some areas have more brown. Some of the textures have more brown, some have more gray, some have more green. And same thing with like the ribs. I'm letting the ribs go more gray there. And then the final is just a normal layer where I add a little light, edge light back over here to try to get away from the outline feeling that we were getting. Also treating some of this, which has an excellent silhouette to some of these branches and stuff coming up, and wanting to just treat those more in the silhouette and bringing out some more of the gray and toning down the ribs so that those shapes hold up really well against that lighter tone in the background. Softening out some areas around those lights so that we don't have just really striped high contrast between those. So that's how I would approach it. I think that you could level up the piece. And this wasn't very long, so you could probably do this pretty quickly, just to implement a darkened layer to tone down the lights, a lightened layer to bring up some of the darks, a little color variation, and then you're trying to adjust this fly is really on a suicide mission because it will get him killed.
Poor Clint.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The other day, though, Fuzzy went in the bathroom, and she's in the bathroom. Her eyes are real big. I was like, what is up with this cat? Why is she in the bathroom? And then I saw that there was a fly in there. So I guess that she was chasing some fly in the bathroom. And she was like so jazzed she was about to catch this thing.
Yeah, my dog runs from flies. He's afraid of them. So as soon as he sees the fly, he's like running to another room, trying to hide somewhere underneath the sink, or I don't know.
Okay, well, that's it for Tyler. We're moving on to the last one, which is the Russian name that I don't know how to pronounce. Okay, it says Anastasia. Anastasia's image. Okay. It says, no matter what I do to this image, it does not get better. I can't figure out the lighting, and the creature looks stiff and boring. Help. Okay, well, we will definitely help if we can. And overall, tones are looking pretty good. I would say overall the clarity is really working well. I agree with you. It does have some places it can improve because it doesn't feel as threatening perhaps as it should. And it feels more like it's about the scene and not about the creature. So, we need to adjust that. And this is also another one that feels a bit more about the character's interaction with this man rather than the character themselves. So looking at this one, does anything spring to mind about what the issue is? And if it does, what would you do about it?
Well, for the creature, what I just think is the very first thing that I thought about is the vines that are all very even and the same size, same direction. There is no change to them in thickness and in shape. There's nothing interfering with them, sticking out of it, no irregularities.
Okay.
It's all very, very when left and right look the same, symmetrical, and
Right.
that makes the creature very balanced. And balancing is always something that is tuning down the dynamism. This is more calm. You have it in your mood chapters with the symmetrical composition, what to use it for. And this is the same aspect like we have for a design of a creature that is very symmetrical. And it's not about balance. Of course, we need balance, but it still can have different things on the left than on the right, or on the front and the back and all that. And I just feel like everything is, there is the front part that is all the same, and there's a little bit on the back that is all the same. It's two languages that are not communicating with each other because there is no real, how to say, they're not really well bound within each other. There is
Hmm.
no transition between them. Um, and the general design is very, how to say, very basic. There's a guy with um, humanoid anatomy with some antlers on top and stuff coming out of his back. And maybe that's
And
it, what you mean
and
by stiff and boring.
yeah,
Um,
and I want to make a note here, Anastasia, that this
yeah,
is particularly difficult. That if you have not worked with inhuman uh, physiques, it's a difficult thing to force yourself out of the human form of it. And obviously you're getting away quite a bit, but even then it's still feeling perhaps too human like.
yeah,
And so I'm trying to force that away, and it's like instead of maybe him having two legs, what if it's just a spread of these vine things that are just coming up and kind of forming into him? So we're trying to find some way to change the shape so that it's not so humanoid anymore. You know?
yeah. And the same thing happens with the other things, like, for example, the tree that he's holding. It's super straight, like the trunk itself is super
Mm-hmm.
straight. There's no irregularities. The doors, no irregularities. And I think that is totally normal at this stage. Every artist is at this stage at some point that you try to make everything fully rendered and look good, and then you end up with something rather stiff
Yeah.
because you thought it needs to be
Well.
perfect, it needs to be super symmetrical, or but it ends up being not natural anymore and less realistic. And I don't know why not having, it's just nitpicking or tiny details, but why not having the door being half broken or a little bit ripped apart, or some
Yeah.
parts are missing in the house, or I don't know, just change it. And maybe the tree is breaking right in the moment he's touching it, or anything like that. And it is all perfect. You try to make everything look perfect, and I think this is holding you back.
And
I know that well because I'm myself, I was like that, or maybe still am like that, that I want everything to be look perfect.
and
Yeah.
Anastasia, this is something I particularly have struggled with in my career, and some of my earlier pieces. I look back and I remember running into this exact thing of making things too perfect and having too hard of a time breaking them up and letting them be imperfect. And the thing is, you have to add that into it. You have to add the fact that things can be off kilter and some things can be a little out of focus and all of those elements. So it just takes practice, and it takes often looking at other people's artwork that do it well, and you just have to kind of go object by object and say, well, can I make this slightly leaning? Can I add damage to it? And you have to just sort of brainstorm about what you can do to take it from this really basic um, whole version and kind of deconstruct it a little bit and let it be more uneven. So I've been trying to do that here a little bit as we're sketching. And look, I was looking at that. I really liked the really high peaks on those roofs. I think it had more personality. So I was adding like the higher peaks on there, keep it from being a little more ideal. You can get more character out of it leaning and the curves going on there. and like the perfect fence with the little shadow casted. You know, I don't have a problem with the fence, but you know, if we soften it out and get some of the other tones going in there. And I was trying to mess around with him, and what if he's like lopsided? What if like one shoulder is he's almost like a hunchback, that one shoulder is like really big and the other shoulder isn't? Or if you want to change it up and make him like, you know, I forgot what the term would be, like multi pleatal, like he's got four arms, you know, and that can be a way. If you start adding in extra limbs, that can really make something look more inhuman, more monstrous. And so if you've got like this, and then and like take an inspiration from maybe like insects, and that you've got like little arms here, and these are on their own little arms, and these are like little hands that come off. Now this thing starts feeling more inhuman, and he's got more motion going on. He's got other like little arms that stick off at weird angles, you know, you wouldn't really expect. But that starts really breaking up. Yeah, M. DeBoer, Dark Souls boss. Actually, not a bad place to go look up some ideas is for a Dark Souls boss. So we're just trying to make it more creepy, and we can have some of these thin, like broken branches and twigs and stuff that are almost finger-like, you know, kind of breaking this up. And those can be coming out of different places too, as these little sharp pieces. And maybe they come out of the joints as well. You've got some of them down here. I think that's a good call. I would just go with more of that. And having like, just this is where it gets both difficult and fun. Is because you're just getting to break the mold, but it can be hard to let go of the previous version and get it to do that. I also think that part of it that's actually holding you back is the face, like the eyes are too human, spacing wise. And so if we move the eyes apart more, we do like more like an eye here, an eye here, this like really wide kind of face. And then if you even gave him, if you want to have like eyes, like what if he has like 4 eyes? And then he's got like this, the other one had like moss coming out of his mouth, but what if there's like this glowing rivulets of stuff, you know, that like come out of his eyes and that are kind of seeping down, you know? Now he starts being way more monstrous, and he's got a way more inhuman sort of feel to him, right? And that's all using the same colors, all using the same values, using even the same lighting situation that you've got going on. Okay, other things I was thinking about is actually what you mentioned, Anna, working with this tree a little bit and working with the guy down here. As we talked about in the other one, it can be more beneficial a lot of times if you get that foreground human and then toss him partly out of frame, because it immediately lets us know as the viewer that it's not about this guy, because we're not showing you all of him. And we're showing you more of that guy, so we assume that it's about him. So say that we do that. And then we also want to change the tree. And we want to get more action out of it. So we get that to be like way more laid over. He's not just grabbing the tree, he's already moving it over a lot. And we could even have it breaking in the middle due to the force. So we can have it like snapping over from there. Okay. So now we've got a different situation here, where the body's back here. And that arm is reaching out, right? That arm is like reaching out, and you'll have to put some light on that arm so we can kind of see it as it's coming up. But then we've got dirt. You know, this is a chance for action. We can have all this dirt coming up in the air. from that being pulled up. Some of it could be lit by the light. That's fine. I'll paint this guy out a little bit. Then this is another place we can have some action, right? We've got this breaking in half, and so we can have like shards of pieces of wood, crack, 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 splintering out from where that's getting broken, and that's falling over here. We could have a branch coming over here and actually busting into the house, and we could have like the shingles, you know, breaking off and stuff. Yeah. So that's how we can push it forwards and get more out of that same scene. Make him a lot more dangerous looking, more creepy. Keep the same dynamics you've got going on, and making more use of that tree, letting it really be ripped over, breaking it in half due to this guy's incredible strength. And then we can see about actually pushing up the lighting. I'm going to push up the lighting a little bit. If you have any comments to toss in there.
Yeah, this is a really, really creepy guy now. With his, also with the chest being ripped open, and I don't know, this is super creepy. And I like the action that is now happening. Also with the tree cracking. Like, it's really in movement right now. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, the other one is a little static. And
Yeah.
so if we can add the thing in the middle of it happening, not him just grabbing the tree, but the tree is literally being ripped up, the dirt is flying, he's got multiple arms, and I think that's creepy because you can't watch them all, you know, and that's kind of scary. Almost like your value there pops out really well in that version. So let's see about actually brightening up some of this to bring that out. Happy little monsters. Just a little fire glow here in the foreground. Just a little fire glow. You know, we don't need too much. We're just trying to tint the area a little bit. Make it feel like this guy's came from the safety of his home to come out to see where the ruckus is before he gets eaten alive. And, you know, it's all because he's just born into this really, really terrible place. I mean, he didn't choose it on himself, but, you know, he wasn't ready, he wasn't paying attention, and, you know, he got what was coming for him. So, just a little fire glow there. And, you know, if he's messing with one of the houses over here, maybe we could even have some more fire glow coming off of a house that he broke. You know, we could have some fire and some smoke coming off of these. And this is just adding more and more to the narrative. More and more to the narrative. And if we want to show that maybe where he came from was actually destroyed as well, we could have some fire coming off of the window of the back house. We could have some glow of flames back in his wake of destruction. Yeah, we just want to see some of that glow. Nothing too specific back there. Nothing too specific. Maybe we just get some tight, bright little embers in the windows. And that would be nice. You could really see them up here if this was closer. Yeah, that's good. Again, this just helps to balance kind of the warmth and the cool of the image a little bit. And if we want to add some more little spots of green on this fella, maybe there's just some little glowing, some algae or something like that. And we could add it along his hand as well. That can be nice, and add a little more now that we've painted out some of this. We can add some light trails kind of coming up from the ground pieces into that body. Yeah. Okay. Well, this is a cool piece. I mean, it's got all the right factors. I've said it before. It's like a recipe that has all the right ingredients. But now what we need to do is change the ratio. One flavor is a little too strong, so we want to pull it down. We want to increase the flavor of something else. So that's how I would take it. Any more additional ideas of what would you implement?
Mm. The mid-ground and the foreground floor feel a little bit empty to me, like there could be something, or do you think it would be too busy in the end? It just doesn't feel natural to me to be when people living there and there's all grass, but they're having houses there and there are
Hmm.
no roads and there are no I don't know, cards or anything like that, that you see that this area is being used for something, but it might just be me, or maybe it's just happening because you overpainted some stuff. I don't know. So
Yeah, I was
what do you
actually looking at
think?
that ref up here, and you probably want to go more along this lines. The ground may be more barren than what you've got in the image, and some more rockiness, twiggy little things coming up, not just good grass coverage over everything. Some little pools of water. I forgot that this world actually, there seems to be a lot of standing water in places. So we want to maybe implement having like some pools of water in the background. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, well, that wraps it up for this time. Real quickly, I'll run through the new challenge in case anybody missed that at the beginning. So, the new challenge will start off tomorrow. The tickets are on sale. I'll put a link to the tickets on the Discord and the Facebook group. And it is a choice between two different, essentially what would be spell cards, Carnivorous Library and Astral Binding. Carnivorous Library, you show a person who is being attacked by these books, and this isn't a really dark scene. This is, you can go from kind of the medium, just action scene to even slightly comical if you want to do that. And the other option is Astral Binding, and that is showing a minotaur being caught in these like magic chains that are coming up out of the ground, and they're trying to bind him down because he's so strong, and he's straining against these astral bindings. So yeah, those will go up. Of course, those are $25. It gets you both of the feedback. You'll have 2 weeks to send in your sketch slash concept. We'll do a review then, and then 2 weeks following that, you'll send in your final, and we'll do another live stream review there as well. Okay, well, that wraps it up for this episode. Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you again, Anna, for making the time and coming out here as well.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Okay, let's see, any other announcements we need to make? Yeah, guys, make sure you're not forgetting, we have a lot of fun during the Wednesday paintover streams. So if you're not a member of the channel, it's only $5 a month. It gives you 4 extra streams during the month. It gives you a full other weekly stream throughout the month. Those are about 2 hours long. We usually do 3 full paintovers, and a lot of fun there. And of course, if you don't know your creator, I've got to mention that, guys. Every creation has a creator. Every painting has a painter. This is basic reasoning, and we are no exception. So if you don't know who he is, and you don't know how awesome he is and what he's done for you, go read the book of Matthew. It's a great book. It'll let you know a lot of what you need to know and help you get to know him. So do that, and we will see you on the Discord channel and the different rooms out there. And until next time, keep drawing.